Very good morning, my prospective listeners. This morning, I am looking forward to having some good time with you, reading a beautiful poetic text of Arthur Guiterman, a modern poet of America, and then discussing it in terms of how messages have been sent to us that human wishes and human desires for having greatness, all these ultimately come to nothingness. So, what has to be done? We have to ponder on the issues as to what human beings are born to do, what they are destined to do, and what they do actually, and why these human wishes and human desires for greatness go west ultimately. So I think these issues are very relevant for all of us to look into and discuss and come to certain conclusions that are convincing or that at least seem to be convincing to most of all. So, first of all, I would like to tell you that this short poem of four couplets titled On the Vanity of Earthly Greatness is also described by many critics and scholars as a bagatelle, a trifle, a composition that doesn't have any significant objective to fulfill or a significant goal to achieve. Arthur Guiterman seems to have imitated or modeled his poem after uh, a poem of Samuel Johnson of the 18th century titled The Vanity of Human Wishes. And it is said that Samuel Johnson, Dr. Johnson, a great lexicographer and writer of the 18th century, modeled his own poem on a satire, 10th satire, in fact, of Juvenal, the Latin writer of the ancient time. Now, this poem seems to be picking up examples from history and getting people into confidence as to how things go wrong. What should be the importance of our endeavor to achieve greatness? And if that achievement comes to naught, then who is to blame? It's time itself to blame, or it's the doer, it's the achiever, it's the human being. It is said that this poem also refers to the remorselessness of time. That time doesn't have any affinity with people's achievements or human achievement or failure, human qualities or human, you can say, frailties. Death is inevitable. Things come to nothing. That is experienced by almost everybody. We have seen in our surroundings, in our families, in our own backyard, that plants, seeds are, you can say, put into the earth. They sprout, plants grow up, plants give us fruits, and then after a certain period of time, the plants die. They get gone. And then again, we have the same cycle. So, what is unnatural about this thing that human beings desire to be great, to be celebrated, to be known far and wide, and for that desire, they strive, they do. Some of the so called really great people, they strive for the good of all, for the good of society, for the good of humanity, not for themselves, not with the purpose of having accumulation of wealth and all that sort, and to enjoy life with the family, friends, and relatives. The really great men, as the world calls them really great, because they don't have any selfishness or the kind of selfishness that most of the people who become ambitious, and who try to fulfill their ambitions through fair or foul means. So these great people who are saintly, sagacious, judicious, far-sighted, they suffer a lot, they sacrifice a lot, they go through so much of pain, and then they become stable as personalities, and they leave behind their footprints to be followed by others who are equally ambitious. So these are the issues. Means my main question is, what is uh, what is the relevance of discussing certain things which are common? Everybody knows that man is born, man becomes, you can say, adult, grown up. He realizes his dreams, earthly dreams, and then he dies. It has been happening since time immemorial, and it will continue to happen unless and until some miracles happen that scientists, medical scientists especially, happen to give longevity to human life or immortality, who knows? Although these possibilities seem to be very remote and impossible rather. So, first of all, I would like to read out these lines uh, written in the form of couplet and also written with a lot of uh, humorous element. The tusks that clashed in mighty brawls of mastodons are billiard balls. The sword of Salome the Just is ferric oxide known as rust. The grizzly bear, whose potent hug was feared by all, is now a rug. Great Caesar's bust is on the shelf, and I don't feel so well myself. So, this is how the lines of this short poem read. And now I have a few questions before I start explaining the lines. My questions are that why did this poet, American poet Arthur Guiterman, a modern poet, write this poem? What was in his mind? What did he want to convey to the readers? What did he want his readers, his listeners, to reflect on, to think of? Because this is common knowledge that great or small, large or tiny, beautiful or ugly, all sorts, all living things, all achievements, they come to naught. When you are living and you have achieved, people see you, people meet you, people talk about you, people can have your photographs together with themselves, and they can, suppose, make you very important in society. That is what is realized. But however great you are, once you are gone out of this world, and however important your achievement had been in the past when you are living, after you are gone, after your departure, people forget you for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 25 years. You have, you have a lot of things done around your graves. Things are done, functions are held, events are programmed on the anniversaries, death anniversaries, birth anniversaries. People write articles in the print media. People have programs on the television. And then the survivors of the great people think that, well, and they were great, and that's why the world has not forgotten. The world is still uh, having the images, having the memories, and having discussions on the goodness of the great man. But a few years after, means 20 years after, 25 years after, gradually the intensity of the programs, the enthusiasm that people saw in the beginning years, these things start dwindling down. And then after 50 years, nobody cares because other people come. And those who come on the scene of power and wealth, they have their own followers. They have their own followers, not because they have conviction of following them, but because they are forced to follow. They have selfish interests. If they don't follow, they don't get push-ups. They don't get certain concessions. They don't get certain supports to have their own names established in society. So it's something like a chain reaction. I call it chain reaction because mostly it is not positive. Means a person who became so-called great using unfair means he helps another person trying to be great or trying to establish his name identity, not through fair means but through unfair means. So he's helped and he does the same thing, and that person does the same thing. So it goes on, means the nexus between the unholy, you can say, hands, this nexus continues. So what's the problem? But then there are hints and suggestions in this poem that great people go off this world. They are not discussed intensely. They are almost forgotten. They come into oblivion. Still, their greatness is there in the records of history. Their greatness is there for others to, you can say, see, others to reflect on, others to be proud of. Some 50 years ago, 100 years ago, somebody did something in any part of the world. And we read about that person, and that person's task was very, very difficult, but the dedication was too much. And the achievement, when it came, was, you can say, celebrated. So you get inspiration and you try to do something like that. There's nothing wrong. So the poet in this poem doesn't seem to suggest that don't desire to have greatness in life. Don't try to be great, celebrated in fair ways. He only means to say that mm, greatness that is real remains, and remains, if not forever, remains for a long, long time. But the greatness that is acquired through the use of unfair means, through the use of dishonest ways, that greatness is more falling than remaining stable. So directly it seems that the natural, suppose, things happening are happening because they become examples for the following generations to examine and then to decide for themselves to uh, follow, or to, you can say, stop with the tradition of following. So some animals, it nature to of some animals that they fight, they come into conflict, they don't like each other, as we have examples that one animal is the enemy of other, one is the predator and the other is the, you can say, what you call predated. Rats are, you can say, eaten up by the cats, and cats are tossed by dogs, and dogs are worried by, you can say, other animals like cows and oxen. And then, so things happen. So one thing is the food item for the other thing. One living thing survives on the other living things. We have birds, so many birds, and these birds are, you can say, shot dead. They are killed, and they are butchered, and then they are eaten as food. So it happens. It's but natural. So animals fighting, one animal fighting against the other very ferociously, that is there. Then what is special about that? What is so special that you write a poem and you take some time? So this intention of the poet has to be probed, has to be seen in the light of reasoning, in the light of logic, and in the light of the need of having some conclusion with reference to all that. So the tusk that clashed in mighty brawls, mighty brawls. So brawls are mighty, brawls are non-mighty, brawls could be just ordinary, of mastodons, the kind of, you can say, animals, and now mastodons of you gone, but billiard balls are made. So after the death, you could engage yourself, these animals, in mighty brawls, but after their killings, after their deaths, their bones are used in the manufacture of billiard balls. So now, after this example of the animal, it's the example of Solomon, the just, uh, a person of great fame of the 6th or 7th century, and a Roman emperor. And he had so many things to his credit. He had improved the conditions of laws. He had reformed the institutions that had direct relations with the public, and so many other good works he had done for the people. And his sword was a symbol of power to to do justice. His sword was the symbol of his strength, his physical strength, his mental strength, and his iron will to improve the conditions of human beings uh, who had been under his administration. And he also wanted to have a good rule to prevail on the neighboring countries, neighboring societies. And so he became famous. But after his death, what happened to the sword? So Solomon is a real person. He did everything. Sword is non-living thing. Sword is a tool, a weapon. So sword here is used metonymically, that as pen, that his pen. A writer's pen did the miracle. Rousseau's pen did the miracle. He wrote the social contract, and that book became an inspiration to those people who wanted society to come into freedom. Freedom not of some individuals, but freedom of everybody, individual freedom, liberty, and all that sort. So it was Rousseau, and the pen is a tool. So it was Solomon who did all the reforms and who took his society or many societies to progress because of determination. But sword is a symbol of his power. But after he's gone, what has happened to the sword of Solomon? Is ferric oxide, known as rust, kept in the museum or kept safely somewhere in his bedroom or in his museum. But after hundreds and hundreds of years, the sword has gathered. Though it's very much possible that the things used by great men or associated with great men are kept so carefully that even after 200 years, you don't have any rusting on the things made of iron, steel, and all that. So, again, this is symbolic. It may not have gathered the sword used by Solomon or the sword that got associated with Solomon because of his greatness, and because in the ancient time, greatness attached to something, means pen or sword, or suppose a kind of boat, a kind of ship, because you set sail and you go to a place to decipher the codes of life or to do some research anthropological. So that ship that you used, the boat that you used, gets associated with you. In fact, the ferric oxide rust is something that destroys. So what is this ferric oxide? It's the gathering of time. In course of time, things start gathering rust. Human body, as an infant, it's so attractive. As a child, it becomes more attractive. But when the same man comes into the last stage of life, old age, then things are all crippled. The senses are crippled, the eyesight, the hearing sense, the limbs don't move, as W.B. Yeats described in his poem, and the lamentation of an old pensioner. So an old man becomes a burden to himself. The body doesn't support the soul. The body doesn't support the mind. And you feel as if it's a curse. The body that you loved, the same body you want to leave. So you speak to yourself. You don't speak to your body. You speak to your mind, your soul, because you you are in pain. You are in agony because of that old body. In fact, it is time. So time's remorselessness. It is time that gives us beauty. It is the time or time factors or time as an agent of nature. It functions and it gives us more and more until we become saturated or if we are not to be saturated type of people, then we never get saturated. We never get satisfied. We never feel that things that we wanted to have in our life have been had, and now it is time to move out for others to come in and to do the same thing. And if you believe in birth and rebirth, then you don't have to be afraid of losing everything forever. You are gone, you go, but you come back again. And when you come back again, the only irony that you don't realize, you don't understand that certain works you had left incomplete, and now you have to complete them. Or certain things that wanted to have, you couldn't have, but now they are there for you to have. So that you don't know, that is not given to human being. Although we hear in some, you can say, stories and weird stories that a person gets rebirth and then he is conscious of what he had wanted to do in his previous life, and he is born in the same place, in the same family, and he begins that work again and completes it. But this is not scientifically proved to the extent that many people would believe in such things happening. So time is the doer. Time gives and time takes away from us. Time makes us strong and time makes us crippled. So from the example of animals, another example in the second couplet is a human being associated with his symbol of power, the sword. In the third couplet, the grizzly bear, again animal. So see the alternation, animal, human being. And then grizzly bear, whose potent hug was feared by all, is now a rug. So bear, the animal, potent hug, a bear crushing someone to death. Or if a person happens to be in direct contact with the bear may capture you, may take you in its control, and give you such a tight, horrible hug that you lose your breathing, you die there. But even that bear having a confrontational sort of engagement with another animal, lower animal or weaker animal, the same fate waits for that lower animal also, death. But now that strong bear, grizzly bear, now gone, and the skin, the hide of that, you can say, animal is used as rug through certain, you can say, culturing, manufacturing process. It goes through and it becomes rug that people buy and adore their, you can say, doors and places, their floors in their rooms. Now again, so animal, human, animal, again last couplet. Great Caesar's bust is on the shelf. So great Caesar, Julius Caesar. And we have also a drama of Shakespeare, Julius Caesar, where we have characters like Brutus and Antony, very famous because they matter in the plot of the play. So Julius Caesar also a famous Roman, suppose you can say, ruler, the head of the government, and how he wins the hearts of the people of his state, and how many reforms he effects in his state, and people are happy about him. But then there's no person or hardly any person in the history also, even if that person did a lot for the common people, for most of the people, there must have been some people jealous of him or envious of him or extremely inimical and harmful to him. These people always might have thought of spoiling his career, spoiling his reputation, or making conspiracies to finish him physically also. So Julius Caesar's bust is on the shelf. He's gone. So now great people's busts are made, statues are made and established, erected in the centers of the cities or in important public places where people organize fairs annually or whenever they think it is all right. But see the irony of this great man of history, Julius Caesar. In history, it is said that he had been killed through a conspiracy. And Brutus, one of his, you can say, one of his acquaintances, rather friendly once upon a time in his life, and he becomes the main conspirator and he kills. So another history, another story about how the villain also gets killed, and how Antony, one of the friends of Caesar, proves himself to be an honest friend, and how his speeches that are constructed in the play of Shakespeare are quoted time and again, and people memorize his dialogues that he delivers on characters, on human destiny, and the you know, on the true colors of the people who are conspirators and who are ungrateful, as Brutus was ungrateful to Julius Caesar. So great Caesar's bust is on the shelf, and I don't feel so well myself. Now here, this line, the last line, to me and to many of us, to many of you, is very, very important. And I don't feel so well myself. And who is this I? This I is the poet Arthur Guiterman, an American poet of our society, American society, Indian society, Chinese society, anywhere. Arthur Guiterman is an individual, but thousands of people, or at least hundreds of people, might have been in different parts of the world with other names, thousands of names. So the poet means to say that I also have ambition. And what has been his ambition? To be a great writer, to be a poet, to be registered in the history of literature, American literature, world literature. So he says that see the conditions when I have seen the conditions of what happened to the, you can say, Mastodon's tusk, what happened to the sword of Solomon, what happened to the grizzly bear, and what happened to great Caesar's bust is on the shelf. Means the Caesar, whose physical appearance was so overawing, so inspiring, so respectful. But now that people come to the museum and Julius Caesar's bust is there in the museum in a corner or in the center of the museum, but you know that it is useless. You just give a look and then pass off. Or if you are very sensitive, if you are research minded, historically inquisitive, then you stare at the bust and then study the bust from different points of view and come to your own conclusions. Despite all that, it's a bust now only. You don't have the power, the intensity, the physicality, the influence that Julius Caesar had when he was alive. Now that he is dead, so his bust is there, a kind of replica, a reminder of the man. But this residue or this artistic thing is of no consequence now. So things, animals, human beings of great consequence when they are alive, when they are in operation, they are in function. When they die, everything comes to almost nothing. So, and I don't feel so well myself, so well, not even well, so well. Means, okay, the poet might be feeling well, but not so well. He is doubtful about his standing uh, through the course of time for a stable period. He says, I also have ambition to be a writer, but when I see these great, you can say, human beings and fiercely strong animals getting into nothing, who once upon a time were so much, now nothing. So, what would happen to me? I'm a writer. Maybe some people know me. Maybe some, you can say, people around the world know me. But I am I going to be stable in the memories of the people when I die? Perhaps not. My station will also be, you can say, full of dust in the future, and I would get forgotten, or people would not give me the kind of affection, the kind of importance, the kind of seriousness that they used to give, or they are giving now because I'm alive. Once I'm gone, once my body is buried or burnt, then only memories remain. And these memories, through the course of time, get faded, and I won't be anywhere. So, this last line carries an element of humor also, an element of irony also, and this also, that even if you are not very great, even if you don't have the potential of reaching the heights of the historical great people, you have some ambition. So this is human nature. Even a good labor, a good gardener, employed for a university garden, college garden, uh, you want to be remembered. And I have the experience that when we have, suppose, what you call a gathering in the staff room, or suppose in the library's lobby, then we see the garden, look at the garden. And then suddenly somebody says, oh, the gardener that tended this garden is no more. He died 10 years ago. But he had given such a strong foundation to the garden that most of the beauty of the garden of his time is still there. It may not continue for a long time because the new gardener doesn't have that much interest in gardening or that much love for the plants, the level that the previous gardener had. So, even a gardener, a farmer, a suppose flute, you can say, maker, an instrument maker, everybody has. But then most of us, because of the pressures of the time, because if we go artistic, I remember one example of a shoemaker, a German shoemaker. In fact, two shoemakers, German shoemakers, having a shoe shop in the downtown of London. And they were artistic shoemakers, soulful. They didn't make shoes only to sell and to make profit. They made shoes so strong and so comfortable that they wanted to be remembered as great shoemakers. See the irony. They died of starvation. They suffered a lot. They could not get nourishing food, but they never, you can say, diluted their, you can say, standard of making shoes. They never felt as if their love of quality. In fact, the title of that story was Quality. So the two shoemakers, they were the men of quality. And for the sake of quality, they would not mind remaining hungry for days or for nights, but they would continue. They won't get much appreciation from a large number of people because only a few people, and according to that story, only some royals who knew about the two brothers, they would regularly buy shoes from him. Even if they had shoes and they did not need to buy new ones, they would buy because they knew that they didn't have many buyers. So if they bought from him, even without the needs, that would be help to the shoemakers. So every human being has a desire, and that desire, you can say, is diluted, it is obliterated. In fact, its intensity, desire you have, we get and we enjoy as long as we live, but after our death, things get into oblivion. That is natural. So my point is that in the other poem also, Samuel Johnson's poem, The Vanity of Human Wishes, there also he takes examples from history, Napoleon, and so many other examples. And he says that all these human wishes have to come to nothing. But what is the solution then? Is it possible for a man not to wish? Is it possible for all men not to have the desire of having greatness? Is it unnatural for anyone to be ambitious? Perhaps not. As long as we are human beings, as long as we have sensibility, as long as we have aspirations, we have a sense of competition, we would like to achieve. And for that achievement, we need to compete. And in order to compete successfully, one has to be really sincere, devoted, committed, and tenacious. Perseverance is very important for such people to achieve something. So I know that I will achieve through all the means, positive means. But after my death, I will be forgotten. So should I stop doing anything? Should I stop aspiring for greatness? No, that is not the suggestion of the poet also. He only perhaps hints at this idea that greatness that is acquired through fair means, that greatness is more stable. Okay, you may be forgotten, but how can you be forgotten altogether? You remain in the hearts. If not all, if not many, at least some. At least the record books honor you. So whenever people, research scholars, or students happen to probe into history, you come out. So you don't get forgotten. You don't get useless. Your power, real power, power of creativity, doesn't go wasted even after your death. It remains somewhere, maybe not sparkling, maybe not seen, but it is there in one corner or the other of the universe. So when I said in the beginning that we should ponder over these issues, that should we stop wishing, should we stop having wishes, having ambitions, having the desires of greatness? Because all the greatness is vain, all the desires are vain? Perhaps not. We should continue to achieve, but our achievement has to be founded on good intentions, on clear vision, on, you can say, farsightedness, on you can say, intensity of continuity, continuity for fruitfulness, for fragrance. I think as I logic like this, that on the vanity of earthly greatness, so earthly greatness may be vain, it may come into nothingness, but we shouldn't ever stop. We should try to be great and genuinely great. We should try to be celebrated and genuinely celebrated. We should sacrifice our own comforts, we should sacrifice our own riches to make society better and to make some semblance of heavenliness on this earth. Um, so, all of us, we stop for a moment and then we think, what is the use? Everything will go wasted, everything will be into oblivion. But no, that is not the message. Message is that may be the thinking, that may be the reality, but we should continue doing our best as long as we live on this earth. And after we die, whatever happens, happens. Because after the death, who comes back to see? And even if spirits come back to see, as it is described, and people believe also that death is impossible, death doesn't happen. It is only transformation from one form to another. So, whatever is the reality, very few people know for sure. But then, this is for sure that good things done is always good, is always to be appreciated. So, vanity of earthly greatness or vanity of human wishes, even if these are vain, these are to reach the state of nothingness, oblivion, we all human beings have to strive through our life to be good and to leave something behind for this world. I have enjoyed talking to you, or I have enjoyed expecting you to be listening to me, although you are not physically present. But who knows, one day you would like to listen to me when you come to know that there is someone who has spoken on so many things, and you might get interested, you might listen to me. And I hope that whenever you happen to listen to me, you would have some good exercise, some entertainment also, and some stimulation, uh, maybe some encouragement also, or some advantage of one type or the other. So thanks a lot, prospective listeners, and God bless us all. Bye bye.